given that we have already implemented the view as in the model view controller pattern, namely we have drag and drop the GUI components like a text view, button, and text field from the graphical design perspective into our mobile screen. Let's now move on to the second components of the model view controller pattern, namely the controller components. Okay, go to VirtualBox and then launch your virtual machine and go to Android Studio. So which file should we modify in order to modify the controller? To modify the view, as we said before, you have to go under App and then Resources and Layout, and that's the XML file for the view. Now for the controller, we're going to go to a different package. Okay, now under Java over here, that means we're going to modify some Java code. Okay, and then under this, you can see one has the parenthesis description Android test, another one got test. Don't go to these two. Okay, go to the third one. Under EECS 1022.bmi, we got something called BMI activity. The convention is whenever you got something activity, that's the controller file. Okay, it should be a Java file. Double click on that, and this is a BMI activity.java file that has been generated when we first created this BMI application projects. And let's we'll go over the structure for the class when we talk about the model. But now, for now, I just want to mention to you this is so-called a method. Okay, the method name is called onCreates, and then it's gonna take some input over here, and then it's gonna do something. Okay, for this block of code, you do not want to modify that. Okay, we just keep it the way it is. It's going to be good for this tutorial and for most of the examples we do in the course. Okay, you just leave it as it is. You don't have to change it. Okay, the only thing that we gotta add is something to say every time if you try to do a button click or you want to do something on the view, you want to make sure whenever, for example, if you click on a button on your view, it's going to have some consequence. It's going to have some programming consequence. And where do we define that programming consequence? That's exactly in this BMI activity class for the controller. Okay. Now, conceptually, this is how you should understand. So now we have the controller over here. Okay, the controller is the second component that we're going to discuss over here. Okay, controller. Okay, let me use maybe a different color here. Let me just use maybe, okay, actually yellow is fine. So controller is the second component that we're going to have. Okay, over here, basically let's think about what's the main duties for that. It's basically to gather user entered inputs. And then it's going to pass somehow the input values to the model. And model is really the intelligent part in the model view controller pattern. So we'll talk about model in the last phase of this tutorial. But now let's focus on the controller. So now basically this is a general principle. You're going to select some GUI components. Okay, it should be graphical user interface components over here in the view. It doesn't have to be all of them because there might be too many. Remember in the view for the BMI calculator, we got 8 different GUI components. You don't have to choose every one of them. So now GUI components, for example, let's say the button. So remember, let me just show you again. If you go back to the Android Studio, if you go to the view, under resources, under layout, activity BMI, you can see that we got so many GUI components over here, and the only thing that we want to have some programming consequence is a compute BMI button. Okay, so this is the only GUI component we select. And sometimes you may have, for example, more than one buttons in your GUI view, in which case you may have to select multiple GUI components to attach some Java code into it. That's something we'll keep doing examples to show you, but you should really keep watching this particular video to really start to appreciate how we are doing the patterns. Okay, let's go back to the paper here. So now, for example, once you choose the button here, what you're going to do is the controller is somehow going to collect or trying to do something as soon as you hit the button. Okay, so now I want to put a keyword over here. That's really the key. Something called on click. On click basically is some attributes of GUI components to be set. Okay, just very general description. So on click is really the key idea. I'm going to show you how exactly you can do it step by step. Okay, on click. Okay, for if you happen to select more than one GUI components, like more than one buttons, you have to do more than one on click setup. Okay, let's just go back to our example and see how we can do it. So now, first of all, let's go back to BMI activity over here. Let's do some typing over here. Okay, so now let's do, first of all, we're going to declare public, and don't worry about what public, again, don't worry about what these methods really mean. We're going to explain what a method is, explain what a class is when we talk about model. Okay, say public void, and then on click. Actually, not on click. So here we're going to have some method name over here. Okay. Basically, whatever you define over here, we can later on set it to be the code that's attached to some GUI components. And the name can be any name you like. Okay, there's only one rule you gotta follow. I'll show you. So now let's say compute BMI button clicked. Okay, you can see there's a compound word, and then basically only the first word is in all lower cases, and then acronym all upper cases, and then onwards capitalized. Okay, the only rule you have to follow is after this, the input for this method here must be as follows. It must be of type view and view. Okay. Okay, this one is always, it has to be the case, otherwise you cannot identify. Okay. Okay. And now let me just illustrate again. The first time we do this, when you say view over here, you will have a list of options over here. Just choose enjoy the view. That's what you're gonna do. Okay, and then open curly brackets, close curly brackets, and then enter. So now at the moment it's simply just empty. And we call this the implementation body of the method compute BMI button clicked. Okay, that's what we have. For now, we're just gonna leave it empty. Okay. So now let's go back to our view over here, and that's something we gotta change. Okay. So on the controller side, you have to define a method for the GUI components for which you would like to attach this block of code. Okay. So now later on, okay, let's just put in some comment here. This block of code can be attached to some GUI components in the view XML file by setting an attribute name on click. And I'm going to show you exactly how you can do this. Okay, now you can read the comments a bit later. So now let's go to activity bmi.xml. Now I want you to go to, we know that compute BMI is the GUI component to which we would like to attach this block of code. To say, as soon as I click on compute BMI, there's got to be some programming consequence. Okay, so now if I click on that, and you can see the properties over here. Okay, now I want you to search for, already there, okay, search from the top until you see there's something called on click. Okay, so now you're gonna scroll down a little bit, and then it's actually arranged alphabetically, so you can just go for O. Okay, there's something called on click over here. Okay, on click, and now you can see the drop down menu box. Click on that, you will see that we got exactly over here. Remember, this was the method that we defined. compute BMI button clicked, right? And that's under this namespace, EECS 1022 BMI, and that's in the BMI activity class. And again, the reason that this is showing over here was because that over here we actually got view over here as the input inside the parentheses. Temporarily, if I somehow made a mistake, I got rid of it. Now let's go back to the XML to see if that will still be an option. Now in this case, if I click on the drop-down menu box and click on that, you can see that the compute BMI button click is not there anymore. Okay, so that's why you really have to be careful. Over here, you should make sure you actually put a view over here and the view over here. Okay, it's really important. Okay, so now let's go back to the GUI here on click, and now since we changed the view back, so now select compute BMI button clicked. Check that, and it's now been set. Let's double check if the effect has been there by going to another perspective. Let's go to the text view over here. Now you can see that we, under the button tag over here, you can see button tag, you can see one of the attribute is called on click. You can see the attribute name is called Android on click, and it's assigned to, using the equal sign, compute BMI button clicked method is the name of the method, which means whenever the user click on this compute BMI button there, whatever that is implemented, currently just empty, but whatever that's implemented inside the body of this method here is going to be executed whenever you click on that button. Okay, it's going to be the programming consequence for clicking on the button. So the purpose of this particular video is really to show you the linkage between the controller and the view. Basically, for the view, you have to identify at least one GUI component, in this case just a button, but it can be more than one buttons, or sometimes we're going to see later, it can be button, it can be radio button, it can be checkbox, or it can be drop-down menu selection. But identify at least one GUI component, and then go to the view XML file, and then choose from the drop-down menu box for the on-click attributes, and then choose the method that's defined in the controller. And the method in the controller over here, which is in the activity file, it must be, the name over here can be as informative as you wish. You can do that by yourself. However, what's really inside the pair of parentheses, which is so-called arguments for the method, we talk about this when we talk about models. And over here must be capitalized view over here. That's the type of the arguments. Okay, once we have done this, once you have defined this method over here with the view input here, and once you have identified the GUI components, let's go to the design view here, and then you have set the on-click attributes to be that particular attribute from the drop-down menu blocks. Okay, once you have done that, you have set up the link. Okay, so what's really left is we have to somehow define some code over here to say what's going to be the consequence programmatically exactly when you click on that compute BMI button. That's what we will do.